Outstanding, the ultimate accolade for teachers. We challenge secondary teacher Gurpreet Gruel to go from good to outstanding. A top inspector will observe one lesson. 2 experts will fine-tune his practice and beef up his presentation. He then gets 2 weeks to take on the advice before the inspector comes back for the final verdict.
I know that if I want to get from good to outstanding, I'm going to have to step out of my comfort zone and just try out some of the things that maybe don't come as naturally to me as a person.
Beal High School is a large mixed comprehensive in Essex. Gurpreet Gruel is a science teacher. He's been teaching at Beal for 10 years.
I'm passionate about teaching, and that's what I love doing. And I've got to a certain level of my teaching where I'm doing a pretty good job, I hope. But I want to obviously try and make it even better.
The science department rates his teaching as good.
Gurpreet is a sound, good teacher. With just maybe a little bit more of a focus and an effort, we could turn a very sound, good teacher into an excellent teacher.
Gurpreet will focus this challenge on his Year 10s.
Just look at that. Look at the power radiating off that lamp. 10A2 are a very nice bunch of kids. They're a set 2 ability-wise. You know, the intelligence is certainly there, but trying to engage them is going to be the real challenge.
Sometimes he'll talk about something without actually showing us. So it's almost like he knows what he's talking about, but we don't.
He does a lot of aiding and teaches us, but I think we could have a bit more like independent learning.
He's better than the average teacher, but could be a bit more exciting.
Physicists have this image of being boring, and in my opinion, all we need to do there is give GURPS a bit more oomph, a bit more charisma.
It's the morning of his observation.
Yeah, I'm excited, but at the same time, I'm a little bit nervous, a little bit apprehensive. But I'm looking forward to it. I want to sit down and talk with the HMI, see what she says.
With hundreds of inspections under her belt, School Inspector Claire Gillies leads inspection teams up and down the country. She certainly knows an outstanding lesson when she sees one.
I'm at Beal High School. I've come to watch Gurpreet Gruel teaching Year 10 physics.
In you come, folks. Right, bags in a normal place, please, at the back.
Gurpreet has got 60 minutes to impress our inspector.
Okay, now, today's lesson is basically going to carry on with the theme all about electricity generation. Now, what I'd like you to do is not write anything down, I just want you to have a quick read of 2 sets of statements. So you've got 3 aims here, and we've got 4 lesson outcomes over there. I want you to try and match together these 3 points with those. Compare the 2 statements, okay?
As an observer, the first 5 or 10 minutes of a lesson can certainly give me a feel for whether I'm likely to be about to experience some really outstanding learning and outstanding teaching.
Okay, all right. Let's ask Simone, show how to use block and Sankey diagrams in relation to electricity generation.
I think it's the 3rd one.
I will know how to draw block and Sankey diagrams. Everyone agrees. Okay, you are correct. Well done. Okay. Electricity coming out, okay? Yeah. So what's the thing which makes the electricity?
Turbine.
That's in the middle.
No.
I'll come back to you. Just have a little think.
I can learn from him, like, but we should do more experiments, just like get that like practical stuff.
Right, the next type of diagram, a bit more quickly on this one, a Sankey diagram. Okay, first of all, apologies that the numbers haven't come out as clearly as I'd hoped on the photocopy. I think you can just about make them out, the calculations that you're going to do.
Showing us how much energy is used from each of the things.
A bit more than that.
Maybe you could have explained a bit more about the second diagram and how to calculate the differences.
What I want you to look for is the criteria needed to compare different power stations. Yeah? Think about if you're buying a pair of shoes. Yeah? What kind of things would you look for there?
Material.
Good. Cost, yeah. Excellent, brilliant. Okay. All right, well, what do you think this hints at?
Why would building a power station cause loss of tourism?
Anyone answer that?
They won't want to come because, like, say, acid rain might erode the statues or something.
Absolutely right. Yeah.
When I observe a lesson, I'm looking for very convincing, high-quality learning from certainly the great majority of children in the class.
So we had these 4 learning outcomes which we were trying to go for.
We only managed to do 2 of the 4 objectives because we didn't have enough time to do the others. But the 2 that we did manage to do, I understood them very well.
So how did he get on?
Gurpreet, how did you feel it went?
Well, I thought it was organised. It was, and the kids seemed to be on task. I think all those things were good, but maybe want something in there which would make it make them engage even more depth of knowledge, basically.
Yes, I think there were 1 or 2 things that could have been, as you say, deepened. Yeah. And just the opening wasn't the warmest of, I'm really pleased to see you this morning, I'm really looking forward to teaching you about energy and power stations. That might have just made it go with even more of a sort of zip and perhaps got them engaged. If we looked at those learning objectives and the aims, I thought that was an interesting idea, getting them to pair them up. We perhaps spent a little too long on it. And, you know, we were considering draw, block and Sankey diagrams. We hadn't actually drawn a Sankey diagram, hadn't we?
Yeah, it was given to them, wasn't it?
It was given, and we were just, and I wonder, well, it was a pity we couldn't read the figures quickly, because I wouldn't think they all were really got the sort of 100% or 100 unit concept and the bits coming off it. I love the shoe comparison. And there was that really interesting, you know, this was some deep thinking, wasn't it? That boy's comment about tourism, acid rain, spoiling statues so the tourists won't want to come.
Yeah.
And perhaps we could have praised him and said, that's really interesting how, you know, you're seeing that they're all intertwined. But certainly, I mean, you were really well prepared, you knew exactly what you wanted to do and where you're going. So there were lots of sort of, you know, good quality, generic teaching skills to make the lesson flow. So thank you very much indeed.
With the first observation now over, the inspector highlighted Gurpreet's need to engage his pupils' interest in the subject, whilst digging deeper into each topic. Now it's time to bring on the experts. To boost Gurpreet's progress, help comes from voice and communications coach Ulrika Schulte-Bauklo and advanced skills teacher Jigna Sarani. They start by watching his lesson.
I mean, just from the communication side, I feel he's generally a good communicator, but I would like to have a little bit more distinction between when he gives instruction and when he asks questions.
I want you to try and match these 3 points with those.
I'm not quite sure what he's trying to do here, because he's got the aims and then he's got 4 very much task-orientated learning outcomes, but I don't think he was able to sort of explain what the learning journey was.
So, a block diagram.
I like to hear more some kind of sparkle, some kind of enthusiasm for the subject.
Convey that enthusiasm to the students and they'd probably have a much more enjoyable learning experience, wouldn't they?
First up for Gurpreet comes advice from Jigna on how to sharpen up his lesson structure.
I want you to try and match together.
It's really good that you're emphasising learning outcomes, so it is constantly about the learning in that lesson. But a suggestion that I have for you, I think, is to make your learning outcomes a little bit more effective. And a good way to do that, and also incorporate all the thinking, is to use Bloom's taxonomy in your learning outcomes. So, for example, one of your aims here, for example, it was show how to use block and Sankey diagrams. So one learning outcome would be to describe the use of Sankey diagrams. But if you wanted to make them work a little bit higher, they could generate their own Sankey diagrams. So another learning outcome to step them up even further would be generate your own Sankey diagrams using relevant figures.
So for each of those learning outcomes, you would have a sort of activity and also the grade.
The way that I plan my lesson is I think of it as a 6-part lesson. We have the start of the lesson, which we call our big picture. And this is the bit where you use the students to help you sort of gauge what stage they're at, what they learnt from last time, and what you're going to be doing with them in that lesson. And it's here that you would introduce your learning outcomes. What we have then next is the new information stage.
And just the one thing I'd maybe sort of want in there is something to actually engage the students right from the beginning.
It doesn't have to come in that order. You can have your new information first, where you've got this hook, this interest, and you do a little bit of your explaining there. So this would be like the first stage in a 3-part lesson. If we're doing the 6-part lesson, what we come to is the part where you have an activity that you've built in for the students to go away and build their understanding. And sometimes it could be, you could be doing things like Venn diagrams. It could be something where you've got a sequencing activity.
That's probably the longest part of the lesson there, isn't it?
Yeah,
the longest activity.
I think definitely it's providing them with enough opportunity in the lesson to learn. The second part of the middle of that lesson is the application stage, and that might be just a simple exam question that you give them. It might just be some questions out of the textbook, and then obviously you've got the last part of the lesson, which is the plenary. Always refer back to the LOs, and because the learning outcomes are linked to levels of thinking, which you can also link to levels of assessment, it's just a really powerful tool to show the students, look at what you've learned and look at how far you've come in your learning.
So how do you get them to go away and sort of be independent?
Well, it doesn't happen overnight. It's something that does take a while, and it is all about training the students to learn.
It's easier, obviously, if they're trained from the very beginning, from when they come into school, year 7.
Yeah, I mean,
not so easy when you've maybe got year 10 or even worse, 6th form.
I have to disagree with that, because what often happens is you start teaching in a way where you are out of your comfort zone. You are doing lots of creative things. And it becomes the way that you teach, whether it's a year 10 class, whether it's a year 11 class. And I think if you want to move from the good to the outstanding, it's actually setting up those opportunities in the lesson where they will learn more.
I would like you to judge yourself in this moment. So, what do you think about your articulation? Where would you say?
Maybe somewhere in the middle. Volume, again, in the middle. Resonant, wouldn't describe myself as resonant, I'd say in the middle again.
Okay.
I'm going down the middle with all of you, I think.
Yes. Facial expression?
Same one more or less all the way through, I would have thought.
Yeah, for example, you have wonderful variety to praise people, but your face...
It's always the same.
It's the same. It doesn't show like, wow, wow. So we work a little bit on this. So what I'd like you now is to imagine you are like Spider-Man. Okay. Do you remember Spider-Man? He does this kind of... Shoo,
yep.
Shoo, and then like fire in your eyes, like a dragon, yeah? Shoo, off you go, make a sound. Be dangerous. Oh, I want you to be far more dangerous. Come on, big dangerous. So I want you, imagine, look over there.
Yep.
I'd like you to put it on fire with your hand. Off you go, and shoo, that's it. And once more, over there. Shoo. Fantastic. Once more, and shoo. So, of course, you will not do this in your class, yeah? But I think sometimes, woo, over there. Come on, come back on task. You know, it's like the colors. We're extending the colors of your painter's palette. Yeah? Good. So, what I like us now is to imagine there's your class, and there are 2 students, and they have done really well, yeah? But you're not going over there to say, well done. You would say, well done. And I like you now, just with your face, just show me, how would you show with your face, wow.
Wow.
Yeah, okay, good. Now, tiny little bit less, but really show you like what they did.
Brilliant, really, really, really well done.
Okay, now what I notice is you drop it. It doesn't really look that it's not very genuine. It doesn't look genuine. So keep your hands up and just hold it a tiny bit longer, that it actually reaches the person. Yeah? Once more.
Really well done. I really like that.
Fantastic, good. Can you feel? Now it hangs in the air and it reaches the other person.
That was a really good piece of work. I really like what you've done there. Well done.
Super. The pace was really nice at the end. Well done. You gave it time. That was great.
I know that if I want to get from good to outstanding, I'm going to have to step out of my comfort zone a little bit and just try out some of the things that maybe don't come as naturally to me as a person. Your learning outcomes are on the board here. So can you start making a note of those?
So, with Gurpreet's final observation just weeks away, it's back to the classroom to put all that advice into action and raise his game.
3, 2, 1, and listening. I've got a couple of things here. Electric kettle. Let's turn it upside down, and there is some information about the electric kettle there. It was interesting. I mean, I was trying out some of the things picked up on Monday. Excellent. It does have something to do with the energy. Absolutely right. I mean, I felt myself being more mobile around the room. Let's see if someone else can explain it just as well as you did. Trying to use my arms a bit more and be as positive as possible. Well done, Sim. Very, very well remembered. The fact that I've linked what grade each learning objective goes with. I think they've really liked that because it makes it much clearer. They kind of know where they stand. Back and looking at these things now. Imagine Bijal went home, she picked up her TV. Okay, just to find, big TV, where's the power rating on this? When it comes to this particular learning outcome, you're definitely there. One of the interesting challenges, I suppose, is going to be kids are so used to seeing me as I am. Any kind of dramatic changes, they're going to be a little bit sort of suspect of us, I suppose. But I think it will take time.
Gurpreet and Head of Science Rob Laird looked back at last week's observation.
Looking back at it, I did appear to be a little bit stiff, a little bit kind of not very mobile.
I think I agree with you. Those kids were bored. You know your students well. You have good relationships with your students, but watching the entry, was that evident?
It might have been something as simple as, you're looking good today, or you're looking tired today, or just a warmer kind of...
you had a good match, or Year 10 have thrashed King Solomon's last week. You could have perhaps mentioned that, and then you would have had that interaction with the students.
Good morning. You're looking good? No tests. Now I'd just like to go through the 3 points with you very quickly. Field lines being cut, a voltage being induced. Is this stuff that you're familiar with, Mohammed? Have you heard of these terms before? No, sir. So these will need explaining. Yeah. Here's a magnet. Let's see how strong this is, and yep, you can pick those scissors up, no problem. You saw how strong that magnet was, yeah? Here's another magnet. It's a bit heavier. Now, how strong is this? Wow. Yes, it's definitely stronger.
It's much larger, sir.
And for those of you still thinking about careers and what to do after school, you can go and work in a power station doing this kind of job, making electricity.
Why would you want to do that?
Well, that's what they do, that's how they make electricity. Thank you, thank you. Calm down a bit. That's not the way it works. It's a lot more complicated. I think the 6-part lesson is something I still need to kind of perfect. The lesson I've just taught, there were elements of the 6-parter in there, of the learning objectives and the starter, the demonstration. We just spend 3 or 4 minutes looking at the diagram, but I think it really needed them doing something themselves rather than sort of, reading through the book. Thinking back over the last few weeks, I think it has been pretty hard. Just thinking back to what Jigna said, she was talking about students being trained to learn in a certain way, and that doesn't happen overnight, that does take time. Now this bit is the bit where we're looking at how well we're going to work as a team.
It's the last practice lesson before his final observation, and Gurpreet encourages his students to work more independently.
No. Should it be on the lid? Like, like mascara, how you have it, it comes out of the lid. So like, should you do that and then just... No, you should put that in a little sachet and then squeeze it in.
The other point number 3 in particular, you've got to be able to explain what the numbers are all about. The good thing was, I think, that there's a large chunk of what they learnt which didn't come from me, it came from themselves, looking at the information on the bottles of sun cream, looking at their books, looking at the table, and then kind of putting their own kind of creative touch to it. Start with you. Ready?
Yeah. There are many advantages and disadvantages for this product. Sun cream protects you from getting skin cancer and burnt and blistered skin.
You can buy this product for £6.25, which is a small price for the big one you can pay without it.
Very, very good. Hi, Jigna.
How are you?
I'm not bad.
With Judgment Day looming, Gurpreet gets some last-minute advice from Jigna Surani.
I did a nice lesson today. I had them kind of design a radio script, basically. The only thing I've yet to maybe, kind of try and refine is the timing. When you put that creative element in, it does take a little bit longer.
Partly that is because it's a new style of teaching, getting them into that habit of being a little bit more hands-on, and it takes time to sort of build that. But I think it's really important that they do leave your lesson having learned something, and even if that means that they only learn maybe 2 out of the 3 things that you want covered.
Yeah, so if you've got 4 or 5 objectives, just try and sort of focus into maybe 2 of them. Yeah, okay.
All right, then.
Thanks for your advice.
Okay, good luck.
See ya. Bye.
I think every time I interact with a child, I'm thinking, right, okay, you're going to be leaving this school one day, you're going to be going out into the big wide world. The qualifications that you leave with, your attitude, the way you conduct yourself, that's what everyone's going to judge you on. And I'm in a position here where I can influence all those things, and I don't take that lightly at all.
The day of Gurpreet's final observation has arrived.
I've got my sort of learning outcome sorted out, and I've got my activities sorted out. I suppose a little bit more nervous than I was for the first observation, because I suppose more is expected of you now than it was the first time round.
Claire Gillies is back, and it's crunch time. With all that expert advice and weeks of practice, will Gurpreet have made it from good to outstanding?
Thanks for settling down so quickly. I would like you to have a look at the words which are scrambled up at the moment at the bottom there, and see if you can sort them out into 3 words which you should be familiar with from last lesson. Okay? All done. Your book's open, your book's open, your book's open, your book's open. You're writing away. That's good. That's good.
Nibbling.
Hands up, please, for the first one. And the answer was, Salim? Ultraviolet. Today's lesson, we're going to take those ideas that we learnt about last lesson and just kind of take it one step further. Okay, let's look at the learning outcomes for today. The first one, learning these words: absorb, reflect, and transmit. And then the second one, if you've understood everything up to that point in the lesson, you will then be able to write a newspaper article yourselves aimed at students your age. Okay, this is simply a green coloured liquid. Okay, it's just got water and sort of green food colouring in it. And on the diagram, you can see what's happening. In your books, I want you to write a definition for absorb, reflect, and transmit. 5 minutes starting now.
It's kind of like when it's bounced off, isn't it?
Perfect. Yeah, there's a definition right there.
And then I don't know how to explain transmit.
And well, you just did. You just explained it. Transmit is when
Okay, now we've got reflect.
It goes in and out.
yeah, it goes in and it comes out the other side. A bit more confidence in, what your initial thoughts are. I was absolutely right. Okay, just before we go over these 3 terms, I've given everyone a filter. Okay? Now, when I look through a particular filter, so take this one, the red one I'm holding up now, everything appears to be what colour? Red. Red. What word do we use to talk about this kind of idea? So, transmit.
I think this lesson was more interactive than last lesson, and we saw a lot more experiments, especially with the globe when we covered it with newspaper.
First, what's a newspaper supposed to represent?
It's meant to be like a filter.
Good. And what is the name we give to the filter that surrounds the Earth? It has a special name. Aman? It's called the atmosphere. Can you stick your hand up, please, if you've heard of this term, the ozone layer? Part of your task now is to find out exactly what it does, what it protects you from, what does it stop. You will have enough information to use to write your own newspaper article. Okay? Write your answers in your exercise book. Off you go. The amount of information on that, it just mentions it briefly somewhere. A sentence which tells you what element ozone is actually made up of.
I do like to be challenged within a lesson, and I feel that his lessons are challenging to a certain extent, but not as challenging as I would like.
Ozone layer actually does. Yeah, what does it protect us from?
It's harmful. We get UV rays hitting our skin.
And why is that bad? It becomes cancerous, okay? Really good. So
With only 10 minutes to go, Gurpreet decides to change his second learning objective into the homework task.
I'm not going to ask you to do the newspaper article in the lesson. I'm going to set you that to do for homework.
The greatest challenge in lessons is it's probably been just thinking about the structure and the timing. The problem is just making sure that things don't overrun.
Okay. One thing you have to do before you go, put your stools up.
Well, thank you very much for letting me join in this lesson again. And I felt there was much more warmth at the beginning of the lesson. You seemed really pleased to see them. That was great. I thought that the green tube was great because it matched on the board, and that was just wonderful. If we look at the learning outcomes, I think we could define the terms reflect, absorb and transmit, but I'd suggest that with this some bright sparks in this group that we perhaps should have just got on to why do some reflect and absorb. Just a little bit more sophisticated for some of them. And then on the second one about explaining the Earth depends on the ozone layer and how humans, I don't think we've got there yet. And I'm going to be quite ruthless and say I don't think they learnt enough. Possibly with this you should have expected them to each be able to feed back the answer to one question and say I'm going to ask each pair or each three or something to read back a specific clear answer to those questions. So we did at least all of us by the end of the lesson get to the articles, but maybe the amount they had to read in the time was a bit long. Perhaps consider less to read, a bit more selective. So that they've got a sense of responsibility that I've got to do the work because I'm going to have to then feed it back to the rest of the class or something like that. Anyway, thank you very much for letting me join in that lesson again.
What I need to work on is motivating the kids to try and work on their own, and at the end of lessons, just tightening up the feedback that I get in the plenary. I suppose it's just kind of just trying to make sure that I do all the things that have to be done more consistently. And I suppose that comes with time.